Maura, good to see you. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with me. I really appreciate that because I know. Well, you're just launching this product, so I know that you're super busy at the minute.
We launched it 2 weeks ago, and
Oh, right, okay. Well, things must
there's
have moved then.
a lot to do now.
Yeah, yeah, I'm sure. So let me start with something that you said to me when we were talking about the product some weeks ago. You said to me, our AI could potentially behave like Donald Trump. Now, that stuck in my mind for obvious reasons. That could also scare people. I mean, just tell me what you mean by that, and why is that important in the context of what you're trying to do?
Well, let me start by saying we don't want our AI to behave like Donald Trump. We're building an AI alignment company, and that's about steering AI models to behave according to human values. And it's about a technical pipeline to do that. We can come on to that in a bit, but the pipeline can drive the AI towards human value, any human values.
Right.
And Donald Trump is a human being, or at least he seems to be. And some people would rather that he behaved a little differently. But we at Ordinary Wisdom, we try not to judge the values that are output from the AI. We have a belief that values matter and that you can do
Hmm.
responsible AI. So we want to enable companies to do the right thing, but we're not at the outset choosing the right sets of values. So if somebody were to choose to try to instill Donald Trump values into an AI using our tools, they could probably go a long way that direction.
Okay. So just to clarify this, so I understand this correctly, you've created an AI, you plug your own value, your own business values in, and then it supervises other AI, if you like, to make sure that they conform with that. Is that, have I understood that correctly?
It's a wrapper for AI models at the moment for LLMs. So it can work with any LLM. At the moment, we support ChatGPT, Claude, Gemini from Google. We're just
Right.
adding a few of the Chinese open source LLMs. Frankly, we could do any LLM because we sit on top of the model. We use machine learning techniques to control it. Our Ours independently is not a tool. It modifies the underlying models that everybody is using.
Okay, I get it. And let me start off by asking you then about that very point. To what extent have your values influenced the way you've approached this? I mean, it sounds to me like you believe that people should be able to choose things like that.
Yeah, well, I have a belief that doing things in a responsible way is really important. I
Mm.
got interested in this from the perspective of what a lot of people were calling AI safety a few years ago, and some
Yeah.
people still do, where it was, and well, some of it was about existential risk, some of it was about other issues, but there was a real perception that AI safety advocates wanted to slow down AI, and it was a bit of a battle. And I don't want to slow down AI. I think AI has risks, but mostly potential or more potential than
Mm.
risk. And started to think about this in terms of responsible AI. So the business, I'm a business person and an investor, and I like building successful businesses. So the idea is a business that's using AI should use it responsibly. I think that's the core values
Mm.
that it's about. The second thing I'll say about it is uh, my co-founder is Michael Mainelli, who's uh, president of the London Chamber of Commerce and Industry, was Lord Mayor of the City of London, and is senior non-exec of the UK Accreditation Service, which is a standards organization.
Yeah.
And we're thinking about moving towards uh, creating standards for values of AI. We can talk about that if you want. It's a tough area. But so it's about creating a process for putting values into AI.
Yeah. Okay. And we'll come back to that thing you just mentioned about creating standards one second. But I just want to ask you something that, if you like, I think flows from what you've just said. If you're saying you can choose the values that drive your AI, the way you use AI, presumably that also holds that organization, the organization that chooses, it holds them to account because or it potentially holds them to account because they've made the choice.
Yes. Well, accountability is important, but
Yeah.
if you use an uncensored AI model, uncensored is a good word on this podcast,
Yeah.
then you're also accountable for that. The EU AI Act makes uh, organizations accountable
Yeah.
for their use of AI models in high risk circumstances. And so we're trying to reduce people's risk. I mean, one of our
Yeah.
targets is regulated industries where there's a lot of risk, there's a lot of rules you have to follow, and we can help people in regulated industries follow the rules. One of our launch applications is a financial services product development application where you try to follow the FCA consumer duty that applies, for example. So yes, accountable, but we can help with accountability.
Yeah. And to come back to your point about creating standards, I mean, that sounds easy. My guess is it's a bit more complicated than that, isn't it? I mean, just give us a sense of where you're going with that.
No, it's not easy. And standards are complicated processes, and this is a ways down the road for us. Let's see. I mean, between a completely uncontrolled AI and a standard which is very prescriptive, there could be some recommendations, and we
Yeah.
anticipate maybe some sets of recommended values that AIs could adopt. But when we think of standards, which would be something that's broadly adopted by a standards organization, we're probably not thinking about standards for specific values. Because values are so contestable, it's
Mm.
going to be hard to get widespread consensus on what exactly the right values are. But we're thinking about standards for the process of getting to values. How should an organization should it have a values committee? How should it choose the values? Should it choose outcomes? Our thinking of this is in early days, but process is much more likely than specific values.
Yeah. I mean, it's rather like kind of decision making, isn't it? I mean, a good process is more likely to lead to a good outcome, good decision, but it doesn't always.
Yes, and the existing main standards like ISO 14001 for business processes and 27001 for security, 42001 for AI. These are all process standards. So
Yeah.
exactly right, and they are important in how the world works, and we think that they're being applied to AI. We have a values-focused lens on how they could be applied to AI.
And have you got, I mean, I know it's still early days because you only launched a couple of weeks ago. Have you got a sense of how customers are responding to this? Because, I mean, what was going through my mind when we talked was that there'll be a bunch of people that say, yeah, I get that I want to be responsible because they're like that, if you like. That's something that is part of their DNA. And there'll be a whole bunch of people. I mean, I'm thinking Elon Musk actually is the word the person that's going through my mind. Probably a bit unfair, but thinking there's no way I'm going to be bothered about stuff like that. I mean, have you got a sense of how customers are responding to this kind of issue?
Well, customers are responding very positively to the concept, and we have some super interesting discussions with significant organizations who are interested in our tech. And by the way, I should say the website is ordinarywisdom.ai. You could use it for free, and there are some people already using it. There is a paid service if you want to use it at high volume. Uh, but there's no question in my mind that customers want this. If you look at I mean, first of all, from our conversations, but you read what people are writing and saying online. Here's me contributing to that.
Yeah,
But there's a lot of people saying we've got to control what these models are doing. They're so
yeah,
unpredictable. And there are a lot of companies that are launching to do AI control layers. And the big players, the big labs, OpenAI and Anthropic, allow you um, control within their own model functions. That's competition for us. The things like the agent frameworks like OpenClaw, they have control parameters that are crucial to how they function. So um, AI control, there is huge interest in it, and for good reason, I believe. I can come on to why good reason if it's not
well,
obvious.
no, well, let's. I mean, just explain that because I think it'd be interesting to hear how you see that, if you like, the good reason why people should do it. I mean, just set that out.
Well, let's use a human analogy. Ray Dalio, the famous hedge fund investor, has written a book called Principles, and he says
Yeah,
people are wired very differently. And you know, you're different from me, Paul, and we
yeah,
encounter some people in our daily doings who have all different kinds of personalities, capabilities, and some are suited for some things, some are suited for others. I think we have to think about AIs and AI agents in a similar way, is that within not too many years, the majority of our interactions, at least online, are going to be with AI-driven intelligences, hopefully with some humans somewhere in the loop. But there's no question it's already happening. And so we definitely are going to want those AIs to have behaviors that are distinctive. And they're going to be wired very differently, as Dalio says. We don't want them to be uncontrolled. We're already seeing mistakes that are made by uncontrolled AIs. We want them to have certain values for certain applications. It seems sort of blindingly obvious from that perspective.
Yeah. And what is it that set you on this path? Because we spoke, I mean, some years ago now, I think, about a different technology business that you were involved with. I mean, what is it that set you on this path, if you like, to shift focus to this particular area? I mean, what was it? What brought about that change?
Well, there's a good story here. I've been interested in AI for 15 years, learning about it. I was a programmer, so learning how the technical aspects,
Yeah.
um, and in addition to being a lawyer for my sins, and I started this other AI business, which was an ed tech business. It's still there. The business here was started by a call from a wealthy friend of mine who said, I'd like to start a business to hold a competition to choose the best book to train ChatGPT. And I thought about that. And I thought, well, that's itself not quite a business.
Yeah.
But it prompted this idea that what if you point an AI at a book and say, behave according to that book? That rather than trying to specify the values individually, pointed at a book. So ordinary wisdom, one of the key control methods we use is point at a portfolio of books and say, I want the AI to behave according to what's in that portfolio of books, rather than specifying. So we have books for Buddhism. I did one last night on Sherlock Holmes and Arthur Conan Doyle, but we have Stoics. Um, we have some that are meant to be financial services regulatory guidance, so they
Yeah.
don't have to be all authors or philosophy. And so and we're still going to do the competitions, by the way. And my friend said, well, I like that idea. And he has provided some pre-seed funding for the business. And that's got us off and running.
Wow. I mean, it's such an interesting idea that you're pointing at a book. I mean, I'm just reading Travels with Epicurus, which is about the philosophy of getting old and being happy. Right. And it's just really interesting. I mean, you could potentially create a kind of a travel guide using a book like that, which is about, talking, sort of helping people understand the sorts of things that will make them happy and the sorts of things that won't in the context of going on a journey. I mean, it's such an interesting idea. Where do you think you're going to go with this? I mean, what are you building towards? I mean, you just described how you got on this sort of idea. Where are you going with it?
Well, we would like to be the leader as a
Mm.
control layer for AI models. And beyond that, I was talking to Michael, my co-founder. He was saying, well, then if we're the leader for the control layer, then there's all kinds of things we could do to help companies choose things like token policies and things like that. So if we could be a leader for sitting on top of models, there's all kinds of things we should do. And I should say, the control layer doesn't mean just control. We have an evaluation capability. So we can we could say control it according to these values using books and also using a constitution. I can come on to what that means as well. Uh, but once you control an AI using those methods, you can also measure the output according to whatever values you define, and our platform will tell you how well it's doing adhering
Right.
to these values, which then allows you to adjust the controls to get closer to the values.
Okay. And just to pick up your point about the Constitution, because that's a very interesting idea, and it's given that you mentioned Donald Trump to start with, and the importance of following, or in his place, perhaps not following the Constitution. I mean, how would you do something like that? I mean, that seems to me to be a great idea if you're American and you've got a written constitution. I mean, it doesn't quite work that way in places like the UK. I mean, just outline your thinking around that idea. I mean, are you talking about a company's constitution rather than the US Constitution? I mean, what are you talking about there?
So this idea of constitutional AI came from Anthropic.
Right.
They for had a Claude's constitution. They have a second Claude's constitution
Yeah.
when they came out with their LLM Claude, and it had a set of values that Claude was supposed to follow. They have replaced that. That was an 8 or 10 page document. They've replaced that with an 80-page document, which is a much more processy document about how Claude should figure out its own values. It has a limited number of hard values. That came out earlier this year. And that got me thinking about one, what happened to the values, the specific
Yeah.
values of the Constitution? And two, you don't have to just do Anthropic's constitution. You could do your own. So we've got a facility where you create your own constitution in terms of the persona that the AI should have, the values it should have, prohibited behaviors, and communication style. And we're going to continue to augment that. But
Right.
you create your own set of rules for how the AI behaves. And if you put that on Claude, it will sit on top of Claude's constitution. If you put it on top of another, it will sit on top of whatever that other AI does.
Mm. I mean, the thing that was going through my mind, I mean, to pick up your point about Anthropic and the kind of the dispute they've had with the American government, I mean, I think a lot of people would be reassured to hear that this piece of technology behaves in accordance with the Constitution, if you like, because a lot of people feel those things are important, don't they? But that has ramifications for how it might be applied in defense settings, legal set, and so on. I mean, it's a very interesting idea. That will it make the technology, do you think, more attractive or less attractive to people?
We hope more attractive. I mean, there are certainly this. We did a launch event 2 weeks ago in the city of London, and got a lot of full room, a lot of questions. One of the questions was, "Well, people do bad things with AI. What are you going to do about that?" And well, I think the answer is we can't stop people from doing bad things with AI. We can't force them to use our technology. So I think the bad guys, and we have to figure out in society, as we always
Mm.
do, what we do about the bad guys. But we can't, we're not going to be responsible for making the bad guys stop doing what they're doing. But for the people who want to be responsible, which I think will attract customers, we can help them. And it's it's our firm belief that that will make the technology more attractive to people,
Yeah, and I
reduce the
guess it's rather
backlash.
like things like B cores, isn't it? I mean, it communicates to the audience uh, in very simple terms. I mean, B Core is all about sustainability, isn't it? I mean, it communicates that in a very simple way to potential users. I mean, it's a similar kind of thing, isn't it? Saying if we want to communicate with you that we are a responsible business. So I think I can see the logic for that. Let me just ask you about the bad guys. I mean, what is your thinking about what we do about the bad guys? Because you're absolutely right. They're not going to be bothered about the Constitution, if you like. I mean, they're not bothered about that, are they? What is your thinking about what we should do about um, the bad guys, for want of a better way of describing them?
I mean, what have we done about bad guys throughout history? We have to sometimes it gets out of hand and you
Mm.
fight a war. We want to try to avoid that. So I don't have a general answer about what
Right.
one does about the bad guys. I could maybe put that in context. I have a small role that I'm a director of Anduril UK. Anduril is the leading autonomous defense company.
Mm.
And people worry about autonomous warfare. I have a belief that to prevent an unstable world, we need to have the good guys to have those capabilities as well. So it may be it may be capability building against the bad guys. It may be regulation. So in some things like finance, if we're worried about people taking advantage, We could set rules that apply to AIs that control how they deal with people. So there will be a lot of solutions. Some of them are controlling the models. I mean, Anthropic has recently gotten worried with the Mythos model, among other things, about its ability to enable bioweapons and put some controls on that. And we may need to do things like that as well.
Yeah. I mean, it does raise an awful lot of interesting questions, I think, doesn't it? Let me just change tack for a bit. I mean, I think what you're developing is absolutely fascinating, and it'll be very interesting to see how it plays out over the next year or two. I mean, I think it's going to be an interesting couple of years anyway, actually. What's your feeling about building a business in this space? I mean, it seems to me that certainly compared to when I started in business, now I know that's a long time ago, the world moves so quickly. I mean, the AI thing has just been, I mean, in the last couple of years, it has totally changed the way lots of things work. What's your feeling about building a business in that context?
Well, it's not easy. I'm scared, a
Yeah,
little bit. I mean, I want to do it, but I wake up every morning saying, you know, what, what are how am I going to get through the challenges? I mean, among other things, where are the big models going to go? Are they going to try to eat my lunch? Um, exactly how, and all the things that I want. I have a big list of things that I want to do to make this offering better
yeah,
while we have some funding, but I don't have a huge team to throw at it at the moment. So these are hard decisions. Uh, but it's terribly exciting. I feel like this business feels like I was I'm a bit of an intellectual, but I also love building things and I love technology. And this feels like the business I've wanted to build my whole life. It feels like the thing I've wanted to do my whole life because I'm working with some of the people I like the best, including my co-founder and my investor. It's a tremendously fast-growing and changing space. So it's exciting. So I started by saying I'm afraid. It's hard to do, but it's really exciting. That's why I'm doing it.
yeah. And what would you say is I mean, to get to where you want to get to, what would you say is the kind of crux challenge that you're going to have to overcome to get there?
uh, we're going to have to achieve product market fit. So that I think for any startup
Mm.
is the hardest thing to do. How we want this to be a valuable business. How valuable it will be, I don't know. But to have it be valuable at all, we're gonna have to have our product be something that customers really want. And as I said to you earlier, I'm persuaded that this concept of AI control is something that's very needed. But the product itself, people are reacting positively to it, but it needs to be refined before it takes off, I believe. It needs some further work. It's brand new. That's what we're doing. We had this idea, we built it and launched it 2 weeks ago. And now what we're doing is we're still building it, but the number one focus is customers, customers, customers.
Mm.
Lots of customer discussions, trying to get people, as many as possible, using it, seeing how they want us to change it to make it the best control solution. And if we can do that, then then we will have a valuable business.
Yeah. I mean, to pick up your point about product market fit, I mean, it's great to hear that people are responding positively, but I often think that in one sense that's lovely. It makes you feel good. The stuff you really want to know is the stuff that they're frustrated about that doesn't work properly and is difficult, etc., etc. I mean, what's your process for getting people to tell you that? Because often, I mean, my experience has been that people tend to want to be nice to you, so they want to say nice things, but actually, what you want to hear is the other stuff that they're perhaps not so comfortable saying. I mean, I'm just thinking about the mechanics of how you achieve product market fit. I mean, what's your process for extracting that information, the negative stuff?
Well, I think you just have to put it in front of a lot of users and then talk to them and make it clear that you want to hear the negatives as well as the positives. That's what we're doing now. We're doing, I have a belief that as CEO of a startup, you should be the chief sales person.
Mm.
So I'm having a lot of the conversations, but I've also got a team that's supporting that, and we're building that out right now. And so it's a lot of customer conversations because look, we want people to pay money for our product. So if before somebody pays money for something, they're going to tell you what they do and don't like about it. They're going to tell you the things that the things that they need, the things that they want improved. And so these conversations that are, you know, they have two roles. They're sales conversations, but they're also product conversations where we learn things about what needs to change in the product. And of course, we don't do everything that somebody says because we can't
Yeah.
do that. But if we start hearing something a lot, that leads us in a direction.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, if you've got 10 people telling you that there's a problem, there's probably a problem, isn't there?
Yes,
Yeah, yeah.
exactly.
I mean, I get that. And in terms of, I mean, you just talked about not doing everything that people tell you. I mean, that is I think is an interesting point because it's not just about getting loads of feedback. It's also about sorting out the feedback that's useful and that isn't useful, which requires you to make some decisions about stuff. I mean, how do you approach that decision-making process?
I don't think, I mean, well, there's I mean, there is science to product management, and
Mhm.
it's not my strongest area. I'm hiring right now a person to do product management, but at the same time, I think it's non-formulaic. I mean, we're trying to create something new. A few years ago at an event with Andy Harder, who's one of the leading Cambridge investors, I asked him, um, how do you choose your startup investments? And what are your criteria? His answer was it's non-formulaic. It's kind of he knows what works. Now I'm sure he has some rules that he wants a good team, he wants things that are scalable, but excuse my phone going off. Uh, but and I think the same thing holds for taste in product features. You've got to understand your market and you've got to make some calls on what's going to work because you're creating something new.
Mm,
Steve Jobs was probably the best there has ever been at this. Uh, the iPhone was not something that was based upon what people were telling him.
mm,
It was he and Johnny Ive created something completely new based upon some ideas that they had. I don't claim to have the skills of Steve Jobs, but I'd like to channel a little bit of that as we try to build our business.
mm. I mean, it kind of the thing that was going through my mind as you were talking is the kind of Henry Ford quote. If I asked people what they wanted, they just said a faster horse.
Right.
Um, and it's very easy to say that. It's much more difficult to make that leap from uh, asking people for feedback to things to coming up with a completely new idea for tackling the problem, I guess, that they're concerned about, rather than dealing with the specific suggestion, because there's a difference there, isn't there?
Yeah, it's a very hard thing to do, and most startups fail.
Mm,
So, and that could be because people made wrong decisions. It could be they made decisions at the wrong time. I think the people who make the right decisions sometimes get a little bit lucky. I mean, look at
yeah.
ChatGPT. They OpenAI was looking for a product. They didn't know what their product was going to be, and they started to see people just wanted to chat with these things, and they thought, okay, maybe we'll release that as a product, and it far, far exceeded expectations. That was obviously a very good decision. They were on a process of casting around looking for a product, so they were doing the right thing. They happened to make a decision that worked. You give them credit for that, but there's probably an element of luck in it as well.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, I think that's a very good point. I mean, I think there is a huge amount of luck, um, you know, uh, but there's also an element of judgment,
Absolutely.
and that I think that takes time to develop. That's been my experience. That
Yeah, certainly.
um, you know, you mentioned getting it wrong. I mean, what sort of mistakes have you made on the journey?
Well, hopefully not too many yet on this company because it's very new, and I'm not. I don't see any big ones. The my EdTech AI company, which was called LearnerShape and has a product called Playlist Builder, which is out there, which builds YouTube playlists. I don't think I focused early enough on product market fit.
Right.
Now, the the ed tech market is the ed tech market's a tough market. I mean, it's like a graveyard of companies. And we've we've survived. But it's hard. So I maybe it would have been hard in any event. But I had an idea of what people needed without thinking early enough about product market fit. And with this company, we couldn't do product market fit from day one because we had to build something that people could at least try out. But we're now there. And now focusing on the customers and what they want is very much my North Star.
I mean, it's really interesting you put it that way because I think there's an interesting thing that happens with businesses. We kind of fetishize making mistakes. We have minimum viable products. You get it in front of customers while you're still embarrassed about it. You get feedback about what works and what doesn't work. And all that's great. That's great because that does help you work out what customers want and don't want. But then businesses move into a new phase, which is we know what they want. Now we've got to deliver it seamlessly going forward, which is an interesting jump. I mean, I think it's an absolutely critical point in the life of a business when they move from experimenting with ideas to get product market fit to, okay, we now know what product market fit is. We've now got to deliver this at scale consistently, error-free, etc., etc. What's your thoughts about that transition? I mean, you must be coming up on that fairly soon.
Yeah, well, it's a crucial transition. I've seen it not as a CEO, but I've seen it in other companies.
Mm.
I have another role as an advisor to a company called PeopleCert, which was the first unicorn in Greece. It's an ed tech company. It's become one of Europe's leading ed tech companies, and I've worked I've seen it go maybe 30x revenue
Wow.
in the 10 or 12 years that I've been there. And there's a lot of problems that are nothing like, they are completely different from the problems of achieving product market fit. They're scaling a big
Yeah.
team, putting
Yeah.
in place the infrastructure, dealing with regulation, um, dealing with markets, et cetera. It's yeah, it's a different set of challenges. And I mean, my background before I became an entrepreneur was an operating mentality. And my first company that I started is my family company. It's called Lilly Innovation, and it just helps do the portfolio of things we do. But that's been very successful because that I know how to do.
Mm.
Uh, it's just simple. It does things that I knew people already wanted to buy,
Mm.
and it's relatively small, but I can make it happen. I'm looking forward to doing that at larger scale. I feel that I know how to do. I know how to hire the people to do it. I'm less worried about that. That I think that if we can get to product market fit, I know I'll have to shift gears, but I'm more confident, less fearful about that.
Yeah. And one of the things that happens, is my experience, and one of the things that happens as you make that transition is it's tough on you as the CEO because you've got to figure out the way forward. And it's different for every company, in my view. But it's also difficult for your people. I mean, what's your thoughts on how you build the resilience of your people? Because as you just pointed out, I mean, being in business means dealing with problems. And that's tough. It's a tough gig, doesn't matter where you are.
Yeah, I don't know if you can build, I mean, you could build some resilience of people, but you have to choose people who have resilience to a certain extent. I mean, I don't want to beat it into them. Being in a startup is a being in a startup is a tough journey. I want to be a startup that can pay fairly, but inevitably we're going to pay less with upside incentives um, that pay less than a big company would, but hopefully with some incentives to make money if we are successful. And that requires a certain entrepreneurial mentality, uh, which tends to come with resilience. So I think it's looking for the right people and finding the right people is very hard. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think even the best people make mistakes on hiring, and then you have to, well, you have if you make a mistake, that's a hard thing. But you have to tell people it's not working out, and then move on to the
Yeah.
from there.
I mean, the thing that's interesting me about resilience, I mean, you're absolutely right about mistakes. I mean, partly that's about creating a culture where people are okay about making mistakes. But one of the problems with resilience is that you don't find out. You only find out whether people are resilient after they've been through hell. If you get my drift, it's a much more difficult thing to assess in terms of how you recruit people, isn't it?
It is.
What are your thoughts on how you do that? Because you just said that the key here is to recruit resilient people. I get that. How do you do it?
Well, the key here is to recruit people who are resilient, good team players, um, although not every role is equally team playing, intelligent, creative. So there's a number of characteristics. I I don't have a great answer to that. I have a decent track record of hiring people who have worked out
Mm,
and also people who haven't worked out. And I tend to interview them. You follow a fairly traditional process. I interview them. I have other people interview them. We talk about it. I get references.
mm,
Uh, I look at their track record. I tend to downweight people who have moved around a lot from place to place, although that's over the course of my career, it's become more common to move a lot, but I want to hire somebody who's going to stay with me for a while. And so
mm,
if they've moved a lot before, it's more likely that they're going to move a lot again, move away from me as well. So it's a fairly traditional hiring process
mm.
and make gut calls and sometimes get it right, sometimes get it wrong.
Yeah. I mean, I'm just interested for the reasons you've just said. Is that I mean, like you, I've recruited some great people in the past, and I've recruited some people that I really regret recruiting. I mean, I haven't figured out how you get that right. I mean, I'm not sure anyone has actually, but it's certainly a critical factor. Finding the right people. I mean, that's why I was asking because I just think it's such an interesting area, and if you could get that right, it's onto a winner, really. But let me move on. I mean, let me ask you about the impact that building a business has had on you. I mean, in what way has building perhaps this business and your last business, in what way has that stretched your expertise, would you say?
But in many ways, I mean, building a startup is a hard thing to do.
Mm,
I'm knowledgeable about the market and I'm knowledgeable about business. So I've tried to understand the areas I've been in. Operationally, I'm strong. I'm less of a salesperson and a product person, so I've had to bring in, I've learned a lot about sales and marketing and product design, but I've also tried to rely on experts for that. And just so I think one tries to bring in the expertise that one doesn't have.
mm.
The other way I think it stretched me is it's just a real roller coaster to build a
Yeah,
startup. I mean,
yeah,
you'll have a great meeting and you'll feel like you're on top of the world, and then something will hit you out of nowhere, and you'll think, can this thing survive? And it's an up and down. This week has been a very good one for us. We've had a bunch of pieces of good news, which I can't tell you exactly what they are, but uh, maybe next week won't be.
yeah. And what is it that gives you, what is it that motivates you to ride that roller coaster? I mean, most CEOs that I talk to would say there's something similar. What is it that motivates you to put up with that, the ups and the downs?
So I think it's learning and interest. So
Mm,
I am still a lawyer. I had quite a successful first half of my career as a law firm lawyer. I worked for a U.S. law firm called Steptoe, first in Washington, D.C., and then 7 years in London. Most of that as a young managing partner of the London office after we had had some turmoil, and I was put in charge of a bunch of more senior lawyers, and we turned it around. It was great. I still like the people there. But as I became, in those 7 years, I was a partner, and as a law firm partner, you become narrower and narrower, and you start charging large amounts of money to sell the same thing in a repeatable way.
yeah,
And I would say to people, I mean, I like my colleagues, I like the work, but I'd say I feel like I can do a great job with 20% of my brain. And I broke away from that on good terms, and I've remained an advisor there. And I realized once I was doing other things that I really just loved the learning. I love the challenge. Like you said,
Mm.
am I being stretched by what I'm doing at Ordinary Wisdom? Yes, very much so, but I like being stretched. I love learning about new things. I love building things. The other thing that this was fairly particular, was um, in a law firm, you're selling the same thing for a very large amount of money, and that's the sales pitch that you would make to people. The sales pitch I make to people now with Ordinary Wisdom, although we're trying to sell stuff, and with other things that I do, is what can we build together? When I'm sitting down with somebody who presents a business opportunity, it's not I'm trying to sell you something. It's what can we build together? And I think that's a much more interesting question. Law firm lawyers don't exactly, often don't have the luxury of asking that question,
Yeah.
although the good ones do.
And it's a very interesting point, that, isn't it? About it's a completely different one is about I'm selling you a service. You'll pay money, I'll give you a service. I'm going to build something with you, or do you want to build something with me? Is a different proposition entirely, isn't it? Different, completely different mindset.
Yeah. And happily, Ordinary Wisdom, our product is at the moment a what do you want to build with us proposition. I mean, we want to sell a service, but what we do is we enable AIs, which have become such a powerful tool in business, to be a better tool by using them. People ask, why are AIs not showing up in the productivity statistics yet when they have these fantastic capabilities? And I think the simple answer is business processes have not yet been designed around them. Just like it took a long time for electricity and computers to show up in the productivity statistics. So this idea of values aligned AI is part of the process of incorporating AI into an organization. And that's a how can we build it together kind of discussion.
Mm. Mm. I mean, I think it's a really interesting perspective, that. Let me ask you a couple of things about what you've learned on the journey. I mean, what would you say, looking back over the journey, have you learnt about building businesses?
Hmm.
Would you say you're better at it now?
I'm definitely better at it. Um, well, the one I said before about focus on product market fit and be uh, tough about people decisions. We talked about hiring before.
Mm.
I'm I'm a people person. I like meeting people. I enjoy a conversation like this. I enjoy meeting new people. And I tend to trust people. I tend to see the good in people, but it sometimes gets me into trouble because I see the good people and then I find somebody who's not suited for the job and I either don't see the bad in them before I hire them, or I'm too quick to deal with problems that arise. And for better or worse in a startup environment, obviously in a fair way, you have to move people on
Mm.
if they're not right, or take, take the decisions to adjust their behavior or put them in the right place. And that's a really hard thing to do. I think I've become better at it.
Yeah, yeah. And what sort of decisions do you find most difficult?
Those decisions, people decisions. I mean,
Mm.
uh, people decisions where somebody you like isn't working out, and somebody you like as a person, and I like most people as a person, but if they're not working out in the role, you got to do something about it, and that's a hard decision.
Mm. Mm. Yeah, I mean, I think the people thing, I mean, the emotions come into play. I mean, much more, I think, with people, isn't it? And as you've just said, if you really like somebody, it's really difficult to say you've got to go. It's a very difficult, it's a very difficult issue, that.
Yes.
Notwithstanding the judgment about why have they got to go, which can also be quite complicated, can't it? What have you learnt about? I mean, notwithstanding that issue, what have you learnt about getting things done? I mean, the thing that strikes me about the last couple of years is that the pace of change has kind of quickened. Things are happening a lot faster. AI, I mean, you're right. The economists would say AI doesn't show up in the productivity figures so far. It may take some years for that to happen, but the pace of change is definitely accelerated as far as I can see. I mean, what's your what's your feeling about that?
Uh, Getting things done is not a problem I have. If I have a superpower, that's the
Right.
one. I this. to toot my own horn a little bit, when before I became a lawyer, I was thinking about going into the U.S. Foreign Service, and I took the U.S. Foreign Service exam, and they had a piece of the exam which was really interesting. They said, "You're a new consul in a remote consulate in a country. Here's a stack of papers on your desk. Here's a pencil and some paper clips. Read them, write on them to your staff if they told you what they should do while in the 2 weeks before you're back here." And that was the test. It wasn't, and it was, and I got a perfect score on that test.
Wow.
And I, I've reflected over this conversation a little bit. I do a lot of different things, maybe too many. I'm going to have to, as ordinary wisdom grows, I'm going to have to focus more on ordinary wisdom. But I love moving from thing to thing because I'm very organized about getting things done. So tooting my own horn a little bit, but that I I don't have a hard time getting things done.
And what does that say about you as a leader?
Don't know. I mean, sometimes I think it makes me not. I mean, I need to be strategic. I need to figure out product market fit. I need to not just, uh, although a lot of that is getting things done because it means a lot of conversations and so forth. But um, I think I'm a very good manager. Operationally, I can get things done. I don't think leadership skills are the same as management skills.
Mm.
And so as a leader, I think it says I run a tight ship, operationally good.
Mhm.
Am I strategic enough? That's part of what I'm learning.
Yeah, yeah, it's an interesting one, the strategy piece. I think to come back to the point of the question, if you're in a stable environment, it's much more easy to say, okay, well, in 5 years' time we can be there, because it's you're in a stable situation. I would, you know, if we haven't learned anything from COVID, the thing we should have learned from COVID is that it's actually very difficult to plan ahead when you don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So I
Yes.
think it's a very interesting sort of area that. A couple of last questions.
As Monty Python says, nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's a very good quote, actually. I'll remember
Yeah.
that. A couple of last questions before we wind up. If you were starting from scratch, anything you'd do differently?
For this business or my life?
I was thinking about this business because you're so early on, but maybe your life or maybe both.
I'm I'm pretty happy where I am in life. One always says, "Oh, I could have pursued that opportunity," but I've got an incredibly exciting number of things to do, a portfolio of things, including this business. How would I have started this business differently? I don't have any. Uh, I don't have any strong feelings on that now. I'm sure I'll look back on that. It's so early days. It's going well. I mean, it's not going
Yeah,
perfectly, but it's going very well. Recruiting Michael, I mean, having my investor come to me with the idea which created it was fantastic.
yeah, yeah,
Uh, Recruiting Michael as my co-founder was a huge win. And and so and our product launched seamlessly. So at this point, no big problems. I'm sure I'll look back and find some bigger ones when we're a little bit older than we are now.
yeah, yeah. And one, I mean, it's a similar sort of question, but from a slightly different perspective. I mean, if you were to give a piece of advice to a rookie CEO just starting out, I mean, what would it be?
Same thing as, figure out something that people want. Think hard about the need and selling a product that people really want and have a quick path to revenue. I mean, there are a number of companies now that are extremely highly valued without profit, like OpenAI and Anthropic has a little bit of profit, SpaceX, which is extremely unprofitable, but these guys have revenue. So it's it's not, yeah, I would say that.
Yeah.
Figure out something people need and find a path to revenue.
Yeah, yeah, good advice, I think, Maury. Good advice. Thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat. I mean, I mean, whichever way things shake down, it's going to be an interesting couple of years, I think. And I mean, I think what you're doing is actually really, really exciting because it's something that hasn't really emerged yet. I mean, I think it will because people realize that this technology needs to be controlled. And what you're talking about is creating a way that enables people to control something that is potentially very powerful in a positive way as well as a negative way. So thanks for making a bit of time to come and have a chat with us. I mean, I really appreciate that, and good luck going forward.
Thank you very much, Paul. It's a pleasure. And I agree, it's going to take a few years to figure out exactly where this is going. And I hope we'll continue the conversation.
Look forward to it. All right, see you soon.
Cheers.
Bye bye.